It's from a little. This is from a little while ago. This was last week. This is Nathan Grayson over at Aftermath. He's talked about they got their own podcast. I didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, but this is Dragon Age review controversy shows how much its YouTube and Twitter have poisoned the video game discourse. Remember, I was saying like they want to talk about normal. We're the normal ones. The more you enable these people structurally or systematically, the more footing they gain until they become default. And it's amazing the way liberals talk about power. I think they really have a better understanding of it like than conservatives. Because conservatives for a long time, they wanted to bring up, oh, it's the marketplace of ideas, this as the ideal. You bring up your ideas, we bring up our ideas, we discuss them equally, and we see who wins out. What becomes more popular? Meanwhile, liberals just say, man, we need to use like the system or structures of power to just completely shut down the other side. That's the solution. It's not, let's see what idea where wins out. It's like, let's just shut down free speech. Like that seems like the best solution. So hopefully, and it looks like Republicans and conservatives are kind of catching on and realizing that, hey, we need to use the structures of power to ensure that we can speak. But let's get into it. This is from this article, which was based on a podcast. These days, when big new game comes out, you can pretty much roll the dice on what kind of reactionary controversy it will produce. You don't need to roll the dice if you actually understand what they're. And I think he knows it. He knows exactly what kind of stuff produces controversy. But he's going to act like they're just unhinged, crazy people. We're looking at moral panic over trans characters, which moral panic, I don't think anyone has a moral opposition to trans characters. Even like the most normie of normies, they just don't want trans characters in their game. They don't, like people don't like trans, this idea of like trans people are, unfortunately, like for them at least, they're repulsive. They're just naturally repulsive. When you see a guy trying to like pass as a woman, there's just something ugly about it, something gross about it. I mean, especially the level of effort a lot of these trans women put in, and they're the ones being paraded around as like the ideal, like, oh, we gotta stick by them, we gotta be an ally. It's just weird looking. Normal people do not like that. They'll tolerate it. I think most people are kind of accepting of the idea that maybe there are people, that are very feminine or, have their wires crossed. It's kind of like homosexuality. Like some people are just born, different. And, if this kind of helps them, they're willing to be polite enough to deal with it. But they don't want this in their fantasy games. They don't want to see it. There's no reason to bring it out. There's no good reason, at least, to bring it out other than to push an agenda. So this idea that there's a moral panic, or like it's just the religious right that doesn't want to push, oh, you're trying to trans kids, which they are 100% trying to do, but it's not just a religious moral thing. It's honestly just a human biology thing. When you see a guy trying to be a woman, there's just a natural repulsion to it. It's like two guys kissing. There's just a natural aversion to seeing that, at least in men. Diversity consulting, yeah, people love that. Games journalists being too positive, games journalists being too negative. Some of these, again, he's just trying to, this idea that, oh yeah, they're just crazy. They're just throwing darts at a board and seeing what sticks. Some other quibble about that will be forgotten in a week, interchangeably swapped out like grains of sand dragged away by the unrelenting tide. Anyway, the usual suspects, those usual crazy people, got mad about Dragon Age Veilguard reviews this week. So it's just, crazy, not normal people had a problem with the awful writing and trans characters in the game. Thanks to the algorithmic prioritization on sites like YouTube and Twitter. So again, like they just immediately say like, yeah, their system's broken because they're showing this stuff off. It's not like people are entertained by it, that they enjoy it, that they support it. Again, Trump won the popular vote. That's not a real thing. It's because the algorithm's doing it. That's why these crazy people are getting numbers. This is a growing number of people engaging with video games. This is how a growing number of people engage with video games. Plenty of normal people still manage to tune out hour-long rants and conspiracy theories. But what point does this rancid flavor of brain rot go from a vocal niche to a borderline mainstream position? And what are the long-term consequences of that? Again, this is really all just setting up like a pro-censorship argument. You need to censor people, and they have a huge hard-on for Asmongold. I'll go into this later. I guess my doomer-pilled concern about all of this is that the American fascist project continues to grow. What he's saying is just normal right-wing people that voted for Trump. This is the American fascist project. Grow in power, and all these platforms facilitate these ways of talking about things. How dare you allow the other side to speak? Conspiratorial thinking and whatnot. Do we reach a point where this becomes default? Because I would say that right now, this is still not the way most normal people talk about games or engage with them. Again, kind of true that the fact that I don't think most people really realize that, oh man, is this game woke or this game isn't woke. Most people don't engage with a game like that. I don't think they like to see trans people or non-binary or rainbow flags in their game. Most people that aren't, left-leaning don't enjoy that stuff, which is a big part of the gaming audience. I don't think most men like to see, trans women in their game or, talks about racism. As you can see, Dustborn sold like crap. Concord was such an abysmal failure. $400 million loss because none of the characters had any sex appeal. Normal people don't want these weird games. And the fact that Veilguard, I think honestly did well based on the fact that it is an established title. It's an established IP. People have played Dragon Age. They've liked Dragon Age. And it still does well because they have that name to go off of. But even normal people, the so-called normal people, are very people that try to be very middle of the road, very as corporate as possible with how they speak. Even they didn't like the writing. Even these normal people, so-called normal people, are very they try to be as unpolitical as possible, as diplomatic as they can. Even they're complaining about how sanitized a lot of media has become. Games like Veilguard, where they keep saying stuff like, it feels like HR is in the room when these people are talking about it. So even they're starting to notice that a lot of these games aren't fun as far as the writing goes, as far as the story, because you have these diversity consultants and you have these writers that are so concerned about not offending anybody. You just have the most bland writing possible. It's not about entertaining the people that's playing it. It's about making sure you don't get in trouble with the groups that may potentially play it and get offended by it, which is crazy. And people say sweet baby. I mean, that is what Sweet Baby does. They make sure you don't offend anybody. So if the game has really bland, really run-of-the-mill dialogue that is super safe, saying that it's been gotten the Sweet Baby treatment, seems like an appropriate thing to say. So to some extent, you'll never know. And I want to say that at least on Twitter, it's an echo chamber. Again, very funny to see far leftists complain about an echo chamber. I think seeing this colloquial usage of it in this DualShockers review makes you think, oh God, maybe it's a bigger thing. Again, talking about the conspiracy about Sweet Baby, it is a widespread conspiracy. What is the conspiracy here? I think that's what they're talking about, is the fact that games that have that hired Sweet Baby, or somehow Sweet Baby just turns games woke, which is an exaggeration of what a lot of people are saying. the reality, like, if they hired Sweet Baby, chances are the writing does suck, or at the very least, their writing is incredibly safe. Because what Sweet Baby does is go in and make sure that it's, it's tolerable, or, it's not it's like sensitivity reading in a lot of way, or make sure is like their diverse character is authentic. And a lot of this just makes the game lamer. It makes the game very safe. There's no edges to it. There's just nothing exciting about it. What guy wants, a game that's all the writing's been like reviewed by essentially HR to make sure it doesn't offend anyone. People like men like an edge. They want something exciting. They want something that they don't want to experience HR speak in their entertainment. They get enough of that. I mean, that's one of the things about video games. It's an escape from the sort of like HR culture, the normal mundane crap that happens in everyday life. But now that's basically worked its way into their art now too. There's no escape from it. Yeah, it is essentially woke, which is kind of a container word, but I mean that's unfortunately that's really the damage that it's doing in art. And this when they continue, they again, like I said, they really have a hard on for Asmongold. They do not like him. It's not given that every 13-year-old boy watching an Asmongold video is going to turn to someone who thinks like that. Asmongold is like super safe. He made that like one comment about Palestine, and of course he doesn't like a lot of the political agenda that's being pushed with video games. He's kind of like an old school gamer that kind of looks back like, wow, why is all this stuff in video games? It's unnecessary. He's again a guy pushing, like, why can't games go back to the way it were in like the early 2000s? They were funner then. They're more exciting. No, they're not. Back when they weren't pushing a super progressive message. Exactly. He's a centrist. He's not Hassan, pushing super left. He's not, all in for Kamala Harris, like Pokimane would be. So he's got to go. Most people are relatively normal. Ah, yes, the normal thing. There's a point where once people with a certain kind of hateful or twisted conspiratorial view start to get oxygen and start to be enabled, their view becomes increasingly bizarre to the normal person. Does anyone watch, like, Asbin, like, besides the whole, like, hygiene thing, he seems completely normal. People aren't so easily brainwashed. They'll just go all in like that. So what is Asmongold brainwashing 13-year-old boys? Is that what they're concerned about? He's telling them not to trans themselves, I guess. Not to get, DEI estrogen. So that's a problem. Obviously, the political situation in the United States shows that a lot of people can, if they're subjected to it long and hard enough. So like Twitter and Twitch and YouTube, they're all pushing this brainwashing propaganda on people. But on a global basis, on a normal person basis, a lot of people will eventually be like, I think this guy is fucking weird. Or who cares? It's Dragon Age. Yeah, who cares if you've got this trans dragon person in Dragon Age? Who cares about top surgery scars? It's no big deal. We don't think that's weird or anything like that. Yeah, I'm sure that's how normal people think. Not everything has to be a conspiracy or a political gesture. Does anyone normal think that having top surgery scars in Veilguard isn't a political gesture? That having like a speech where this lady does push-ups because she misgendered a party member, is it a political gesture? Because I 100% think it is, and it 100% is. Like, the writers of BioWare are 100% trying to use their art to push a political agenda. There's no doubt about that. But they got to say, oh yeah, that's not normal. That's a conspiracy. Definitely normal people would have no problem with that. They don't think that's weird. It's insane. These people are delusional. But I'm optimistic that other people but I'm more optimistic than other people are with this stuff. But it's more of a YouTube problem. Again, they bring in it's a YouTube problem than a societal problem. They need to sort that out. What do you mean by sort it out? What does YouTube need to do to sort that stuff out? Why don't you go out and just say what you mean by that? And then essentially you mean censor it. If you haven't caught on, what he's implying is that YouTube again needs to censor people. It needs to shadow ban people. They need to push harder on the scale to make sure people with dissenting views cannot get out there. True. In addition, it's a Twitter problem. A Twitter as well, which good luck with Elon owning it. It's a Facebook problem. With Asmongold, there's a Twitch problem. So Twitch needs to take care of Asmongold, and to some extent a TikTok problem. So they get then just it's so funny how casually they talk about that. Like, man, just Twitch just needs to do something about Asmongold. He's too popular. Why don't they ban him forever? You know, it should only be Hassan. Hassan should be the only guy allowed to speak on this stuff. Asmongold's too. He's not towing the line, so he's got to go. It's just amazing how like casually they just talk about censorship. Like it's fine. Why not? Why wouldn't Twitch do that? It's crazy. They all end up at the same place despite starting at different site. They all end up at the same place despite starting at different starting points. If we're just taking on if we're just talking on radicalization engines, those are our main means of communication. Then how long until everyone is some flavor of radicalized and not for the better? And again, you're talking about polarized politics in our country. We're already part of the way there. I hope that things will get better, but I think we're required a concerted effort on the part of those who want them to be better to build something else. So we need our own. It's so funny, actually. We went from the right wing saying we need our own Twitter to the left saying we need our own Twitter. It's amazing how quickly that shifted the second Elon bought Twitter. Guys, we need our own YouTube and stuff. We need our own super left wing YouTube. It's kind of delicious to see the shoe on the other foot now. But that's it for the article. Again, this was from Aftermath. Just guys saying, yeah, Asmongold needs to go. Like, why is he allowed to say stuff? Did I cover everything?